King, there's only one thing left for you to do. You know what it is. This is an anonymous letter sent by the FBI to Martin Luther King, urging him to commit suicide. He was one of the primary targets for the FBI's illegal surveillance program in the 60s called COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program which targeted many civil rights groups, such as the Black Panthers and the American Indian Movement, and activists like Stokely Carmichael and Malcolm X for more than a decade. The purpose was to, quote, expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, and otherwise neutralize the possible threats against the existing order. The program was exposed in 1971 when a group of activists stole documents from an FBI office on the night of the Muhammad Ali-Joe Frazier fight and leaked them to the press. Today, COINTELPRO is something people recall from the past as the darkest FBI program exposed so far.
This video is not to instill fear. The targeting of our people never ended. We have been monitored and watched since we came to this land. That hasn't changed. If you're sharing the truths about who we are, you should assume that you're being monitored. They want to place labels on us as extremists because it will allow them to track and surveil. And yes, they will use informants in plants like they did before. So pray for discernment because all who are with you are not for you. Some have been sent. You need to know who sent them. Again, this message is threatening to Esau, so they will try to use the same pressures used against Nick Cannon. One day you're bold in your convictions and saying that we are the people, and a week later, he's out there issuing an apology. He was pressured. So just know that right now they are preparing their campaigns. They want to lump all of us who believe that we are the people of the book as a hate group. They're already doing it with select groups. I don't believe they have enough negative information to categorize all of us that way, but they certainly have the framework in place.
The report identified Black identity extremists as a threat to law enforcement. Critics say the report is eerily similar to the FBI's 20th century counterintelligence program.
COINTELPRO was an FBI operation established in the 50s by J. Edgar Hoover to target African Americans who were fighting for justice and equality. He targeted Dr. King, he targeted Malcolm X, and over 80% of the targets of COINTELPRO were members of the Black Panther Party.
At the height of COINTELPRO, activists and community organizers were targeted. These include current Congressional Black Caucus members like John Lewis, Bobby Rush, Emmanuel Cleaver, and Barbara Lee.
The church committee in the mid-70s held hearings and determined that many of the actions and activities of COINTELPRO were really unconstitutional.
What you described is a series of illegal actions intended squarely to deny First Amendment rights to some Americans. How shall we ensure that it never happen again?
One of the similarities that I see are that it's based on race. COINTELPRO definitely targeted African Americans. Black identity extremists, which Attorney General Jeff Sessions has put out, targets African Americans. When it was brought to our attention, we immediately contacted the FBI director and had a very forthright meeting. I specifically asked him, how do they identify Black identity extremists? Who are they? And there was no answer to that. We still don't know who's a Black identity extremist.
A lot of activists around the country are very concerned that we're getting ready to repeat a very sad chapter of our history, where people who are rightfully protesting what they consider to be an injustice in their community, which is their relationship with police officers, are now being targeted and labeled as extremists and are going through periods of surveillance and harassment.
As a community worker, I attended many Black Panther Party functions. I was part of the breakfast program. We registered many people, the African American community and others, to vote. Well, the FBI during COINTELPRO would try to turn members of the Black Panther Party against each other. Agent provocateurs were placed within the party to try to sow dissent.
I was the coordinator of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party. In December 4th, 1969, Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, two members of the Black Panther Party, were murdered. And they put an informant, William O'Neill, planted him inside the Panther Party.
We can mourn today, but if we understood, Fred, that we are dedicated, that his life wasn't given in vain.
The national director of the FBI said that the Black Panther Party was the #1 threat to national security of this nation. And that created the condition for law enforcement agents all across this nation to go after Panthers. That program that they did, in some sense, we ought to be thankful for, because that put in writing for everybody to see we're still in the eyes of so many, nothing but a bunch of work. Was I surprised? No. I fully expected it to happen. Now the question is, how do we deal with it?
People need to get to their members of Congress and get them a copy of this report and hold their members of Congress accountable. In this day and time, they could really stop and halt the progressive movements that are taking place in the country. And I think with Black Lives Matter, with the Dreamers, with all of our millennials and what they're doing, they deserve to be out there and to protest and to engage in petitioning their government to right the wrongs of the past. Those of us who've been around, who saw COINTELPRO, really know the risks and the dangers, and so I hope that people really believe us that this happened, because this is COINTELPRO 2.0.
This is Democracy Now! I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
Well, we end today's show in Texas, where a black activist says he is the first person to be targeted and prosecuted under a secretive U.S. surveillance effort to track so-called black identity extremists. On December 12th, activist Rakem Balogun awoke to armed FBI agents storming his Dallas home apartment. He was then jailed for nearly 6 months without the possibility of bail, as the FBI investigated him for domestic terrorism, in part because of his Facebook posts criticizing police brutality. He was released earlier this month after U.S. attorneys failed to prosecute him. Balogun is a founding member of the group's Guerrilla Mainframe and the Huey P. Newton Gun Club. The groups coordinate meals for homeless people, organize youth picnics, run self-defense classes, protest police brutality, and advocate for the rights of black gun owners. The Guardian reports investigators began tracking him after he was part of a 2015 protest against police brutality, and that the FBI learned about the protests from a video on InfoWars, the far-right website run by Alex Jones. Balogun's arrest comes after a leaked August 2017 report from the FBI's Domestic Terrorism Analysis Unit revealed that the FBI claiming, quote, it is very likely black identity extremists' perceptions of police brutality against African Americans spurred an increase in premeditated, retaliatory, lethal violence against law enforcement and will very likely serve as justification for such violence.
Civil liberties groups have slammed the FBI report, comparing the memo to the FBI's covert COINTELPRO program of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, counterintelligence program, which targeted civil rights movement. Many have also noted the FBI memo was dated August 3rd. only a few days before the deadly white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, where white supremacist Ku Klux Klan members and neo-Nazis killed an anti-racist protester, Heather Heyer, and injured dozens more. The FBI does not seem to be surveilling and targeting white people who post violent things to social media, including multiple white men who've recently carried out mass school shootings. Demetrius Kabuchis, who shot dead 8 students and 2 teachers last week at Santa Fe High School in Texas, had posted on his Facebook page a picture of a T-shirt reading "Born to Kill." Nicholas Cruz, the 19-year-old man who killed 17 people at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High in Parkland, Florida on Valentine's Day, had shared numerous posts on social media so disturbing he was reported to the FBI multiple times, yet they never arrested him. Well, for more, we go to Texas, where we're joined by Rakem Balogun, who was released earlier this month after being held for nearly 6 months. In San Francisco, we're joined by Makia Cyril, co-founder and executive director of the Center for Media Justice and a Black Lives Matter Bay Area activist. Let's begin with Rakem. You were arrested December 12th. Describe what happened.
Well, pretty much on December 12th, around 6 a.m. in the morning, me and my son was at home resting when FBI agents rammed our door and immediately rushed us outside in our underwear, you know, under gunpoint to be arrested, and for me and my son to be, you know, separated, and overall me be hauled off to jail.
And what did they tell you? On what grounds? What were you charged with?
I was charged with 922G, which is prohibited possession of a firearm.
And did you have a license for the firearm?
Well, in the state of Texas, you don't need a license or even have to register firearms to have them legally. Long as, you know, you're not a felon or considered a prohibited person, you're able to have firearms, you know, within your home or your vehicle. And if it's a long barrel rifle, then you're able to open carry that without any licenses or anything of that nature.
Why were you held for almost a year, Rakem? A half a year?
Well, the reason why I was held was because the FBI was pretty much surveillancing me for over 2.5 years as a domestic terrorist. And out from, you know, surveillancing me for being a domestic terrorist, you know, they overreached and tried to use a previous charge from, you know, 2005 to say that this charge made me prohibited of having a firearm, which the elements of that charge actually didn't. But the reason I was able to be detained for so long is because when I initially got locked up, I went to a magistrate hearing with a magistrate judge for a bond, and the judge denied me bond based off of me using my First Amendment right to criticize police officers on Facebook.
And how was your case ultimately resolved?
It was dismissed. You know, we filed pretrial motions stating that I am not a prohibited person and forcing the United States government to prove that I'm a prohibited person, not to have firearms. And the government failed to prove that.
Could it be that they weren't interested in proving that? More or less, they wanted to disrupt his life, to cause him to fear? Just think about it. Don't you think they already knew they didn't have enough evidence? Come on now. So here's an article from the Southern Poverty Law Center. It says radical Hebrew Israelites. It says since the 1960s, the radical Hebrew Israelites ideology splintered to form increasingly anti-Semitic, anti-white, anti-LGBTQ, xenophobic, and misogynistic sective groups who preach they and only they are the true Israelites of the Bible and perpetuate the anti-Semitic belief that so-called Jews have stolen their identity and birthright. Do you see how they have added all of these different groups in there to make it seem like because we're saying that we are the true people of the book, we hate all these people that I just listed? So let's look at some of the groups they've already identified. So they identify Israel United in Christ, led by Bishop Nathaniel. They've identified Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, a Great Millstone, and the Sakari, also known as Exodus 17:15. It says, it is from these One West camps that many of the groups we list and track. That's important. Groups we list and track originate, along with the belief that Sephardic and Mizrahi Jews are so-called Jews. And how many of us say that? And have stolen the identity of the true Israelites, who they determine are all Black, Hispanic, or Native Americans. For radical Hebrew Israelites, the central belief is that they have been robbed of their identity as being God's chosen people. Now just stop and think how many of us believe that we are the true people and that our identity has been stolen. So how do they identify? They said for radical Hebrew Israelites. So you're radical because you believe the truth about who we are. Pay attention to that. This is a part of the framework. Let's keep going. It says these groups employ pseudo-historical arguments. In other words, we just kind of make stuff up as we go. Such as claims that Jews control the slave trade or that they own the ships that were used for the slave trade, and that is a historical fact. Let's keep going. It says radical Hebrew Israelites often refer to Jews as the fake Jews, using the name Amalek in reference to a biblical enemy of the Israelites. Sometimes they lump Jews in with Edomites, a term referring to another biblical nation that radical Hebrew Israelites use as a derogatory term for white people. It goes on, it says the label of Edomite comes with a claim that white people are the descendants of the biblical character Esau, who radical Hebrew Israelites have interpreted to be of the devil. Many groups, such as ISUPK, believe that the white man is the devil that the Bible speaks of. Let's keep going. So I'll highlight some excerpts from an ADL article where they're painting their picture, trying to create this framework, or I should say they've already created the framework, but now they're using examples of extremism and anti-Semitism to try to make their case. So here they're talking about Sakari, Hebrew Israelites, aka the Sakari, aka Exodus 17:15. So they say Sakari's name is a nod to the extremist Jewish zealots who rallied against Roman occupation. Just as their namesakes advocated violence, Sakari preaches one of the more extreme and violent ideologies. Originally a California-based group, the organization has established camps in 10 U.S. cities. So now, look, this is why we know they are listening to the messages, to the videos from whatever platform used to share the truth about who we are. And I'm not advocating for these groups. I'm just trying to let you know how in depth their tracking and monitoring is happening. So it says in their own words, we are a spiritual community organization that is dedicated to the uplifting of disenfranchised so-called Blacks, Hispanics, Latinos, and Native Americans. Through the Spirit and power of the Most High God, in the name of His only begotten Son, and they go on to name the names for Yah. And then it says, teaching the truth of the Bible and reintroducing the lost sheep of the house of Israel to their true identity. So they name him, or this group specifically. Let's go on and see what else they have. If you think they're not listening and paying attention, think again. Look here, it says individuals associated with Israel united in Christ frequently use the surname Ben Israel or Israel, and members associated with the Zachari faction use Yasharallah or Yahawada. Individuals may also list Jerusalem, Israel as the hometown. I'll drop down. It says these new monikers are added to pre-existing social media profiles, replacing the individual's given name. In some cases, profiles are stripped of their content pre-Black Hebrew Israelite acceptance, but other profiles show first signs of exposure and the transition from conventional posts to Black Hebrew Israelite leaning beliefs and messages. So they know exactly when you started believing what you believe. Listen to this quote from the Apologetics regarding Black Hebrew Israelites. It says, in many ways, Black Hebrew Israelite beliefs are a mirror image of the white supremacist Christian identity religion, which holds that Northern Europeans, not Jews, are God's true chosen people. Both see Jews as the spawn of Satan and accuse them of secretly controlling society by Machiavellian string pulling. So Tom Metzger, leader of the white Aryan resistance, has said, they're the black counterpart of us. In other words, equating our beliefs with those who believe in white supremacy, KKK groups. It goes on, Black Hebrews believe the descendants of American slaves and the indigenous peoples of the Americas make up the 12 tribes of Israel. They expect to someday return to Israel, which they call Northeast Africa. Adherents reject Black Africans who are usually seen as traitors who sold their Black brethren into slavery. The origins of the Black Hebrew Israelite religion may stretch back to before the Civil War. By 1896, Prophet William Crowdy founded a sect in Kansas. The religion permitted polygamy, forbade birth control, and decreed strict dietary laws similar to Judaism. By World War I, there were congregations in several major cities. By the 1980s, others had appeared in Israel and several other countries. The racism, listen, paranoia, and millennialism that they have is very flammable, says Solomon Niang, an expert at Howard University. They want to take on the entire system, the entire world that they think is evil and against them. The line between reality and imagination doesn't exist for them. So in other words, crazy. They're just crazy for believing what they believe. Let's keep going. So pay attention. Again, this is how they're monitoring the social media activity. It says employing social media for communication, teaching, and recruitment is central to current Black Hebrew Israelite practices. Real-life activities such as street teachings, marchings, and conferences find digital homes on Black Hebrew Israelite social media. Popular social media platforms are frequented by Black Hebrew Israelite groups to spread their ideology, connect like-minded individuals, and coordinate local and national sects. This activity is not unlike the online presence of other extremist ideologies that use online spaces to amplify real-life activities. What does this tell you? When they pull the plug, this is where they go first to try to stop the messages from going out. So let's go back to the ADL site and see what is a cause for concern. They said Israelites, Saints of Christ, aka ISOC. Now listen to this and tell me if this sounds familiar, if these are words that most of us use. In their own words, our mission is to wake up the so-called blacks and Hispanic natives to their true biblical nationality and cause them to truly follow God in Christ. We are a Bible-based organization that teaches repentance to the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. Our goal is to spread this marvelous truth throughout the earth. The so-called Negroes and Hispanic natives are the true biblical Israelites. So, let's drop down and see what the examples of anti-Semitism are. It says a page hosted on their website titled Not the Real Jew reads, Revelation 2:9, I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan, and includes the following text and images, including a Hasidic child stamped with the word imposters. This is considered a threat.
A police officer, 3 bystanders, and 2 gunmen died after an hours-long shootout broke out in Jersey City on Tuesday. The gunfight broke out at a cemetery and continued at a kosher supermarket about a mile away, according to the AP and everybody else who covered it. Last night, after extensive review of our closed-circuit television CCTV system, it has now become clear that from the cameras that these 2 individuals targeted the kosher grocery location. Now, Fulop is a Democrat, tweeted this out. This came after Fulop noted Tuesday evening that the gunman likely targeted the location. It is unclear if the attack was terrorism-related or why officials believe the supermarket was targeted. Of course, the suspects are now apparently tied to the Black Hebrew Israelites. Now, for those of you who are like, that sounds familiar, where do I know that organization from? Well, that is the same group of people that harassed the Covington Catholic kids in Washington, D.C. before the Native American Paul Phillips got involved, and then they blamed the Covington kids for harassing the Native American. It was the Black Hebrew Israelites who were there attacking and harassing the kids verbally. Okay. And they were also there the entire day harassing Native Americans. That's what they were doing. So now there's a couple of things. One, as people on the live stream have expressed, they are shocked that the Black Hebrew Israelites even came up in the media. Furthermore, if you look at, did I mess? Okay, somebody says Nathan Phillips. I might have messed up his name. Sorry. Nathan Phillips. He's the Stolen Valor guy. So anyway, if you look at the searches here, you have the New York Times, you have NBC News, you have the Inquirer, you've got, National Review, Washington Examiner. That's not all, new. But the fact that you even have them talking about the Black Hebrew Israelites is huge, because they have refused to cover any of them previously. I mean, they all but didn't exist when it came to the Covington story. They just pretended that that group wasn't even there. So now, again, you've got at least one of these gunmen being a member of the Black Hebrew Israelites, according to the information that we have at this point in time. What the extent of that relationship was, I guess we'll have to find out. But the mayor is out there, and he is saying that they are that they targeted this kosher store. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Black Hebrew Israelites are basically a black supremacist group. They hate white people. They don't like Jewish people. They don't like Native Americans. They have some very weird beliefs. Yes, they are pretty much fringe. But isn't it interesting how with the Black Hebrew Israelites and all of these stories where people are covering them, and by the way, I am grateful that they're actually covering them, okay, because they usually don't.
We have to be vigilant, family, and understand how the enemy operates. It's the message they need to stop. So what I wanted to share with you and encourage you to do is to keep praying for those who are sharing these truths. We're trying to provide you with the resources so that you can easily go back and find this information on your own. Don't just listen to these messages as you would listen to entertainment. Be involved in looking up the information for yourself and then continue studying so that you can be equipped with these truths. One thing that cannot be taken away from you is the truth that you know. It is the truth that will set you free. So get this information down on the inside of you. Have some go-to scriptures that you can easily turn to regarding who we are as a people. Because when they take down these channels, and they block this information from going forth on their platforms, it shouldn't deter you in any way from continuing on in the truth. Those who own the media will use all of their resources to block the truth when they think we're a big enough threat. Channels will be taken down with no warning and labeled as hate groups. They're trying to stop a movement, but this is not a movement for us. We are reclaiming our heritage. So take a moment after you listen to this video and examine your heart to see if the things covered in this video causes you to fear. If it did, deal with it now, because your Nick Cannon day may come. Or you may be approached to become an informant. It has happened. That's how they took down the Black Panther Party. They planted people within the organization to destroy it from the inside. With that being said, I think we may also need to pay close attention when there are sudden disruptions and infighting among us, particularly when you suddenly have strife with another brother or sister that you didn't have a problem with before. Strife is the enemy's playground. You may need to pray about whether or not the enemy has engineered an attack. And I know we can be difficult to deal with sometimes, but we have to wonder, is it being instigated from outside sources? If they can keep us fighting with each other, we make their jobs a little easier. A good idea may be for us to start reaching out to each other privately when situations like that occur, because there may be plants working behind the scenes. A great way to stop a fire is to suffocate it. And if your brother or sister's heart is in the right place, they will have no problem talking to you to resolve whatever the issue is. But we have to be wise to the ways of the enemy, family. Right now, they are monitoring and looking for ways to discredit and disrupt. And I hope you know that they will manufacture false flags and misinformation campaigns when they think we're a big enough threat. If you haven't read the COINTELPRO files, COINTELPRO, look that up. Look up the files. They're on the internet. They've redacted a lot of the information, but you should be able to get the main points. Look it up, and you will be shocked by some of the things they did. And don't forget, it was the FBI that did it. So when you see mass shootings or terrorist acts, and the media makes it a point to say that, oh, that person was connected to a Hebrew Israelite group. Question it. That's not to say that there are not some among us who do wicked things. You'll find that wherever you go. But ask yourself if we've had a pattern of doing that type of thing. Because their goal is to stop the mouths of those who are being used by the Most High to reach His people, particularly those with the larger platforms. So let's keep praying for each other, because this is a war and the enemy does not play fair. We have to learn how to fight in the spirit realm to expose those agents of darkness. The point is that if they take down a few, others should be prepared to stand up and continue on with the work. The work is not about any one person, group, or channel. The work is about the Most High and His people. So I hope that you got something from this. I didn't want it to be long, but let's be wise concerning the ways of our enemy. Be blessed. Shalom, everyone.